And so I realized after this entire process that I could either write with the reader in mind and make them upset anyway, or I could write for me. I could write the book I want to write. I could tell the story I want to tell. I can write something that is so true to myself that it won't matter if people don't like the book, because I know that, like, fundamentally, I wouldn't even want to be their friend. Hey, sunshine! Welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Creative Podcast. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about me, and it is that I thought my book deal for my first published book, The Gaslighting of the Millennial Generation, was a fluke, was just like a random chaotic happenstance of the universe and had nothing to do with me or my skill or my talent as a writer or the fact that I had anything important to say. I was just like, weird, a book deal. So we're going to talk about that. So I literally believe that it was a fluke, an accident, a lucky 1 in a million thing. And it was really lucky. I got very lucky with the way that it played out. The timing was right for that topic. An agent happened to see my blog post about it that went viral, and I got a book deal from it. That is not the normal way that book deals go. Like, normally you have to go find an agent and you have to go like try for a long time to find the right fit for your book. The fact that it all like fell together the way that it did for me feels so surreal, but I also am a good writer. And assuming that my book being published was just like an accident or it was pure luck, that meant that I was not allowing myself to believe that I had actually done something myself. I did not believe that I had done anything worth celebrating because it wasn't my work. It was just an accident, right? That's not helpful. So here's what happened. In October 2016, I wrote a blog post called The Gaslighting of the Millennial Generation, and it went viral. I posted it on Facebook and Twitter. Lots of people were reading it. Lots of people were sharing it. It started going outside my friend group very fast, like within 24 hours. People were telling me that they saw their friends sharing it, like just on their own accord. And so I was like, oh shit, this is serious. It ended up with over 1 million views, 400 likes, 520 comments, and 1 email from a book agent. Also an email from Huffington Post, but I turned them down because they wanted to republish it without any monetary compensation. I thought that was fucked up. So from the outside looking in, like if you're just a person who knows Caitlin on Facebook, you see this blog post, it goes viral, and then I have a book agent. And so you're like, oh, yes, amazing. Rightly so. Of course you got a book deal. Very talented. That was a very good blog post. And then when I was published, it was like, hooray, you did it. That's amazing. Of course you did. Oh my God. Inside my mind and my body, I was losing my shit. I didn't think anybody was going to read the blog post. And honestly, the fact that it went so viral scared the crap out of me, and I didn't write again on my blog for 6 months because I was like, well, how do I follow that? And this speaks directly to what I told you in the last episode about writing for other people and writing for the reader and writing to get published. Like, I suddenly had a much bigger audience. And I was worried that they were looking for something from me of the same caliber, the same viralness. And I didn't know how to do it again. I wish I had known that what went viral was the fact that I was so passionate about the topic. What went viral is that I said exactly what was on my mind. There's no way that I could have written The Gaslighting of the Millennial Generation blog post if I had intended it to go viral and become a book. I wouldn't have been able to do it because it only worked because it was so passionately created. It took me over a year to write a book proposal because every time the agent would email me and I would be like, okay, He's talking to me about how to write a book proposal. He literally was on the phone with me for like 2 hours explaining everything that I needed to write a book proposal. And I was like, oh, okay, now I know. I'm going to write this book proposal. And then he sent it out to like just a few people to get some feedback on it to help me. And I wrote the book proposal for other people's eyes, right? I was so just terrified. I wanted it to succeed, right? And so I was trying to make it succeed, and then I wasn't letting the idea shine on its own anymore. I was trying to manipulate it and turn it into something sellable, something wantable. And it took me like over a week to open the feedback from those people who read it. It was just 3 people. I don't remember a lot of the feedback except that they I had said that it was written in an ostensibly funny tone. And somebody was like, whenever someone tells me that their book is about to be ostensibly funny, I am not impressed. I roll my eyes. And I was like, oh, okay, we're not going to say that. So it was too much, too fast. Like I was not prepared for the success of that blog post. I was not prepared for a book agent. I knew eventually I wanted to write a book. I had tried many times to start a book. And I guess in many ways, I'm grateful that I was sort of thrust into having to learn this process. Honestly, if I hadn't been thrust into that, I probably would not be anywhere that I am right now. That's weird. I'm going to have a crisis about that later. It's not for you. It's for me. So it took me over a year to write this book proposal. Over a year. I can now write a book proposal in like a week, an afternoon, if I'm really motivated. And then, so I got the proposal together. That went through several iterations. And eventually we got it to a point where my agent was like, this is good. We're going to shop this around. And what happens is, so if you have a fiction book, you have to have the whole manuscript done. But if you have nonfiction, you can get a deal just on the proposal itself. And you will need like some chapter samples from it, but it's a different process, which I'm learning a lot about as I now am working on a novel. So the proposal's good. He sends it to 10 publishers. All 10 wanted to read the proposal, which is out of the norm. Again, a testament to the fact that I had written something fucking compelling. Okay, give myself some credit for that. And 1 publisher wanted it. 9 passed. They were like, this is very interesting, but it's not a fit right now. And that happens when you are querying to agents, when you are then with that agent pitching to publishers, you get a lot of no's. And then eventually you get a yes. So of the 10 that we sent it to, I got 1 yes. And I decided to publish with them. And the offer that they sent, like when they were like, yeah, we want to publish this book, let's full steam ahead, let's go. That offer came during the most traumatic week of my life. So I was leaving my abusive husband. I was moving out of his house, and he was overseas visiting his family while I was enacting this plan, because otherwise he would have talked me into staying. So we have like a transatlantic divorce happening. I am leaving his house, which means I have had to be touring apartments and finding a new place to live and all of this and hiring movers and packing up all of my things. Meanwhile, my stepfather is in the hospital dying of lung cancer that I didn't know about until just a few weeks prior, because my mother deliberately kept it from me as punishment for not speaking to her. I've got blog posts about that. I can put a link in the description or in the show notes for you if you want to read about that. So I'm leaving an abuser. My stepdad is dying and then did pass away during this like 10-day span. And then I get an offer to publish my book. That was a weird week. That was a lot. So I got an offer on the book and I was like, yes, let's do it. Because I think if I had tried to think about it any harder, I would have overthought it and gotten lost in everything that was going on in my life. And so I just jumped at the chance and I was like, cool, we're going to write this book. We're going to publish it. And about a year later, it was published. It came out in May 2019. And despite the people pleasing in my book, like where I talked about in the last episode, where I was trying to like kind of soften the edges around some of my more harsh leftism and like strong opinions and things, and where I really wanted to like scream and shake people, I was like, what if instead we were nice about it? Despite all the people pleasiness, I still got negative reviews from people who it just was not for. I'll get 1-star reviews just because people are like, why aren't you talking about Gen X? I'm like, that's okay. If that's what you want to get mad about, that's fine. And so I realized after this entire process that I could either write with the reader in mind and make them upset anyway, or I could write for me. I could write the book I want to write. I could tell the story I want to tell. I can write something that is so true to myself that it won't matter if people don't like the book, because I know that, like, fundamentally, I wouldn't even want to be their friend. Like, they wouldn't approach me in a crowded room and like ask me about myself, nor I them. So like, they don't like my book. That's fine. That's a neutral circumstance about life. And that shift from being so worried about what other people would think of my writing to writing for myself was vast. It was incredible. It's like, oh, I understand now. I understand that writing a book, especially the first draft of a book, is like just for you. Yes, we want it to be marketable and sellable, and we want it to fit into like the topics and the genres and all of this stuff. That is final touch finessing. The core of any story that you tell, any book that you write, any play that you act in, like anything, the core of that has to be true to you in order for it to resonate with the right readers. For every 1-star review for people who just like don't get me and the book was never going to resonate with, there are probably 3 to 5 5-star reviews telling me that they were like crying by page 10 because they had never felt so witnessed and seen. So that is my message for this episode of the podcast, is that like, if you're going to tell a story, if you're going to write something, you need to write what your story's about. You need to write it for you. And you need to keep it true to yourself, first and foremost. Zhuzhing the corners and maybe rounding it off and softening edges, that can come later, but that can't be your first priority. So I hope that you tell your story. I hope that you write it down. And I hope that you don't second guess yourself and don't write it for anybody else but you. Okay, I love you. Bye. Okay, fellow storytellers, there is one thing that I want you to take with you. The fact that your story matters and you deserve to write it down. Are you going to let the inner perfectionist hold you back because you're afraid of getting a little bit messy along the way? Or are you ready to embrace the chaotic, messy, beautiful experience of your first draft, knowing that wherever you start is good enough to begin? Let me tell you about a game changer, my working title writing incubator. This is a 12-month writing incubator. It is not just a course. It is not just any old program. This is the place where your authorly dreams take flight. And as always, it is developed by a neurodivergent, disabled, queer writer, so you know it is top tier shit. Inside the incubator, I am pulling out all the stops to make your book inevitable. The only thing missing is your decision to come aboard and say yes to your book. Join Working Title today, and we'll turn your story into reality, one chapter at a time. Your book deserves a spot on that shelf, and it is time for you to claim it. So visit workingtitlestudio.com to take the first step towards finally finishing that first draft. Your story belongs in the world. So let's make it happen. As always, I want to shout out my amazing podcast production team, the Pancake Copycats, who specialize in marketing support for neurodivergent entrepreneurs, and songwriter Ashton Powers for writing and performing my intro. I'll see you later.